Roku on your smart TV. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Platform to be able to help people across the country. All right. It's an issue where every Sunday I have a study group research team to help people in all kinds of various issues that we may have. It may be an issue concerning bankruptcy, student loans, auto loans, mortgages, credit cards, utility bills, rent. All right. These are the services that we look to assist people with across the country in every state. Of course, we work through non-for-profit organizations, which is very, very important because the last time I spoke about this on this particular show, it was about having a coalition of non-for-profits. And I think it's very important that people start looking into non-for-profits so they can start getting funding, all right, to help others throughout their community. A non-for-profit is a community-based, all right, infrastructure, financial infrastructure to help people out of all sorts of situations, like for housing, because, there's a lot of housing issues going on, and buildings need to be built to be able to house so many people that's coming on. All right. Generations of people is coming in, and we're going to have a place to put people, to stabilize people. And of course, a lot of us as Democrats, a lot of us as Republicans, or we could be liberals, conservatives, independent, but nobody's actually addressing our issues here today. What we need to be aware of, and to have that culture and economic awareness in the United States. Of course, our tax dollars create a breadbasket. Not only that this breadbasket was really technically created for us because we put the labor and the work in for so many years to be able to benefit off of our breadbasket that was created back in the 1930s. But in the meantime, our breadbasket is being shed throughout the world. And we already know that there's a saying that charity begins at home. Nothing wrong with helping other people in other countries. But at the same time, we can see our veterans are not being taken care of. Our homeless is not being taken care of. All right. So many people is on public welfare. All right. Because, there's not the opportunity of jobs. I've known people who have gotten college degrees and still can't even get work, in the field that they go to school for. But at the same time, they got a big, large student loan debt that, they're having a tough time. And then, of course, when you got these debts on you, to make a difference, what kind of debt it may be, the issue can be that it's going to go against your credit. All right. We assist people with credit issues. All right. There's all kinds of issues, foreclosure issues, because a lot of people don't know what they can do, to keep their homes, all right, from being foreclosed on, especially when you got these lenders, all right, that's transferring your mortgage or your deed of trust. All right. Because some states, they call it mortgages. Other states, they call it deed of trust, but it boils down to be the same thing. But now the question is, what can we do when your property is going into foreclosure because you fell into some financial hardship? And unfortunately, since 2008 or 2009, with the Barack administration had put out, the bailout for the banks and the mortgage companies, but the homeowners were supposed to be a part of that bailout, and it never happened. So there's been doing so much foreclosures from the time of the bailout, even up to this present day, even through COVID, So again, what are the alternatives? What's the legal alternative that people can keep their homes? All right. We're not even talking about not trying to pay a mortgage. We're talking about hardship. All right. There should be some debt forgive me loans that is not even being offered by the banks or the mortgage companies or the credit card or the creditors. All right. They don't set up a program to be able to help those who are falling into some hardship, financial hardship. They pretend that they're going to help you with a certain program, but when you go through the program, which is a probationary period, then they turn around and deny you. All right. And they don't even really modify the loan, which means to bring it down to whatever amount that could be affordable for you to pay every month. All right. A lot of people don't know that you can stretch your terms of your contract. All right. Where what I'm saying is that if you got a 30-year mortgage, all right, you can stretch it to 60 years. So if you got a $2,500 mortgage payment you got to make every month for $3,000, you can bring it all the way down to $1,200 a month, where you can possibly afford paying $1,200 a month, all right, for the next 60 years, where you can still modify your loan and bring it back up, or you can double your payments twice a month, all right, in order to be able to maintain, your property, your investment. Because when you are a homeowner and you take out a mortgage on your property, you become an investor, all right? And so all the funds that you put into this mortgage payment, which is your equity, you don't want to lose that, all right? And especially for taxes, because even if people's mortgages are being paid off, one of the issues that people will fall into is a tax sale on their property, because they may pay the mortgage off, but at the same time, you may lose the property on the fact that the taxes are not paid. So now how do we have the remedy? What is the recourse, remedy, and relief for property that is being foreclosed on for taxes? All right. You would think that the municipalities or the counties where the properties are located would be in a position to say, this is what we can do for the homeowner. All right. Now, some other information that I want to share that is very, very important for you all to hear is that those who are 62 and older can apply for the homestead application, which means you would be exempt for property taxes when you are 62 and over. There's a lot of elderly people who's over 62 years of age who owns property and don't know this information. And it's the interesting thing about it, because the deal is that you would think that the banks or the mortgage companies would give the homeowner that information at the age of 62, that you'll be eligible to be tax exempt for the property. That money that you will be exempt from paying property tax can be used to pay your mortgage off. All right. So I think that is very, very prime information to know. In New York State, they call it the STAR program. All right. It used to be at the age of 21 back in the 1861 or 62. But as years went by, they moved it up from 21 years of age to now 62. But again, the information is important. Go to your tax assessor's office anywhere in the country, in the county where the property is located, and inquire about the tax exemption and that you are qualified over the age of 62. So I think that's very important that people can have that information, because if you're paying a mortgage, all right, and if you over the age of 62, then you can use those payments to help you pay your mortgage. If you don't have a mortgage, all right, you can still apply for that because you don't have to have a mortgage to apply for homestead exemption. You have to be at the age of 62. All right. The other factor is if you have a mortgage, all right, there's another factor, or deed of trust, same difference. Another factor is if you have enough equity in your property, all right, when you get to that same age 62, you will be qualified not only to get a tax exemption for that property, but you can go for what you call is a mortgage conversion. That's only providing that if you're at the age of 62 and have enough equity in your property. All right. Very important to know these things, because then that way you can maintain your property and don't have to worry about financial hardship when you do a mortgage conversion. All right. So it's very important for those elderly that if you got a lot of equity in your property, all right, and you want to have some kind of relief, all right, the equity in your property can pay off. It can pay off the mortgage for you. All right. And that's going to go on for the term of your life. Now, if unfortunately one was to pass and wants to have the property to pass down to other family members of loved ones, all right, by a will or a trust, whatever suits your, ability. One thing that you need to know is mortgage life insurance. A lot of people don't know that mortgage life insurance is an insurance that, God forbid, if you was to pass, the mortgage life insurance will pay off the mortgage for you. And in that way, the house can be free and clear, all right, of a mortgage. All right. So these things are very, very important that people will be aware of this information. Very, very important. There's much more information. All right. Like when it comes to credit, everybody today lives off of credit. And of course, your credit has a lot to do with the rating that they're going to charge you in interest rate. All right. And so the higher your credit score, all right, the lower your interest rate. All right. That's another factor that people need to be aware of. All right. Trying to build up their credit enough to reduce their interest rate. So now, for instance, pardon me. For instance, suppose you have, say, a 690 credit score, and your credit score goes up to, say, 750, right? You can renegotiate your contract with the creditor or the lender to say that your credit score went all the way up, and that that should be able to have an effect on the interest rate, which means that you can or modify the contract for a lower interest rate. So it's very important to know that even if your credit score was to go up from a 690 to a 750, all right, that right there will save you a lot of money on your interest rate. And people need to know this information, because this is information that the public doesn't know at large. And this is information not just for the state of New York, but also throughout the United States. All right. So I'm just giving some very informative information for the people to be able to help themselves, all right, in a time of need, especially when this country is going under a financial crunch. All right. Of course, the tariffs is going to cause a problem. There's government administration is changing, and every time there's a change, the economy of the country gets affected. Like about a month ago or so, how the market dropped drastically because of the tariffs, and so those who had investments had a hard time, losing so much money, especially when you got a 401k plan, which is, outrageous, because that plan is not really stable. It's just unfortunately that plan is a plan where people wind up losing so much of the investment they're paying into the plan. All right. And then all of a sudden, the market drops and the 401k starts to lose its value. All right. And so what we can do about that situation is that get a brokerage account. If anybody who's out there who has, say, for instance, the 457 plan or a 401k, right, what you can do is get a brokerage account. All right. It costs nothing to open up a brokerage account, mostly like Fidelity. All right. And what I'm saying is that you can borrow a loan against your retirement plan and put it into the brokerage account. And you would have a broker to be able to walk you into the right investment that you can start to build up a lot of equity in your portfolio in a brokerage account. All right. Because we cannot really rely on a 401k when the market is so volatile that the 401k is going to get hit hard. And so all this money that you put in as equity is being taken away. All right. So what I'm saying is we have to take our own initiative and knowledge to say, you know what, I need to look for some other alternative other than the 401k. All right. And again, you can take a loan against your 401k, put it into like a Fidelity brokerage account. All right. And there's different investments out there like Warren Buffett, who has this called Greed Index, right? You have Vanguard, you have ETFs. All right. These are the things that will go into your portfolio when you open up the broker's account. These are the things that you will want to discuss with the broker. All right. Because you want to get a high yield earning on your dividends. All right. And what you can do is reinvest in dividends. All right. You don't want to take it out where it's going to be taxed. All right. You want to constantly keep reinvesting your dividends over and over again until you can build it up. And what you can do is you can borrow it against that dividend. All right. Where you don't have to worry about paying the tax or even paying it back. Because why? Because the equity in your portfolio will pay the loan back for you. All right. This is to give you some kind of financial relief. So it's very important that I share this information for the people. But we're going to go on commercial break and we'll be right back.
Hello viewers, you are watching Millennium News 24. America and global villages seen to America independence built by immigrants, manufacturers, roads, highways, educations, healthcare, IT, scientists, space, business development to all thousands of multimedia and all major social media platforms and news network in America. Millennium News 24, one of truthfully news networks in America and global news organizations. Please watch, follow and subscribe. We are in iOS and Android devices, Roku, Amazon, Apple devices, all smart TV, globally Horizon satellite, social media Millennium News 24, Millennium TV 24. Website www.millenniumnews24.com and www.millenniumtv24.com. Thank you.
Yes, I'm back giving very valuable information to help the people at large throughout the United States. The American public is getting a financial hit. So I think it's very important that I share information with people so they have recourse, remedy, and relief to whatever the situation may be. It could be a credit card, student loan, auto loan. It could be a deed of trust. It could be a mortgage. It could be a utility bill. It really doesn't even matter to me. All right. Because I do study. We do have a study platform, research team, and we look into these things to see what kind of recourse that people would have. All right. Because again, people is relying on public welfare, the government, grants, and it's really tough out there. So now the question is, what other alternative that we have other than just depending on that? Retirement, Social Security, disability, SSD, SSI. What other alternative that we can look to, all right, that we can have some kind of financial stability so that way we wouldn't have to worry about if we can't pay our mortgage or we can't pay the rent or we can't pay the student loan, all right, or the auto loan, all right, because when you don't pay these debts that I'm referring to, all right, they're going to come at you, all right. So it's almost like they're setting up some type of economic warfare against the people when they can't pay these debts. All right. They got what you call this credit card insurance. People don't know aware about that. You need to know about the credit card insurance. all right, where you can insure your credit. So just in case if something happens, all right, at least that would pay that. You can also freeze your credit account, all right, so that way any negative things won't fall onto it, especially when you know that you're going to fall into some financial hardship. The smartest thing you can do is freeze your account, all right, because if you have a 750, you don't want to have your account to get hit and it jumps down to a 650. You don't want to lose so many points. So if you want to maintain your stability of your credit score that's high, you can freeze your account. All right. People need to be aware of these things because a lot of people is unaware that you can freeze your own account. All right. There's other recourses out there pertaining to whatever the issues may be. All right. Because we address everything across the board because we fall into either one or more of these categories. All right. When it comes to these creditors. All right. So it's very important. Like, for instance, if you owe a credit card company. All right. And what's going on is that a lot of us is not aware of that. The credit card company, what they would do is they would write off the debt. All right. They would write the debt off. And then what's going on is that other debt collectors would claim that they purchased or bought the debt, which is something that's not true because, again, this is something you need to know, that if a credit debt collector come at you with a notice in the mail, all right, trying to notify you by email or text message or on the phone, whatever, how they're trying to contact you, it's very important to know, do they have what you call is the assignment of debt, which means the original creditor would have to assign that debt to the one who's claiming the debt against you. A lot of us don't know that. So if there's no assignment of debt, he doesn't have a claim. But if it's being written off by the original creditor for taxes, this is something else that you need to know. All right. Because we study taxes, we want to make sure that we all in compliance. All right. Because we don't want no problems with the IRS. But at the same time, when a creditor decides to come after you, all right, who's not the original creditor, one thing that one needs to know is that, did you get a 1099-C, not a 1099-A, not for the abandonment. The 1099-C represents what? Debt cancellation. So the original lender can cancel the debt, and the debt is going to be back into the taxpayer, unfortunately. But what I'm saying is that once you get the 1099-C, which is the debt cancellation, you will file that as a loss with your taxes. All right. 9, 10, and 10, the creditor, the original creditor, do not give you a 1099-C like he's supposed to. That's for that taxable year that you fell into default with that creditor. All right. So that's a common practice that the creditor do not give you the 1099-C to file with your 1040 form. All right. So it's very important to be aware of these things because then that could be another way of eliminating the debt. All right. If you fell into default. All right. Some of these contracts, these debt instrument contracts, like the mortgage and the deed of trust, they got like insurance on it. All right. Like it says, mortgage insurance protects the lender for non-payment or default on the loan. All right. And that's something else for the homeowner who has a deed of trust or a mortgage needs to go to their mortgage and look right into their mortgage, and they will find out that there's mortgage insurance. So that way it protects the lender. But not only that it protects the lender, but it also protects the borrower, the homeowner. All right. And you can go into arbitration because if you didn't get your title insurance policy as the homeowner, you're supposed to have gotten that at the closing. All right. And in that title policy that you need to be aware of is arbitration. All right. You can arbitrate this issue with the insurance company, the title insurance company, and meaning that that is technically the administrative alternative to going to court. All right. And the creditors, like the mortgage companies and the deeds of trust companies, the banks, they don't even give you that opportunity to administratively, offset whatever debt that's owed. All right. Through arbitration. All right. That's called the ADR, the Alternative Dispute Resolution. You can go to any of the websites, all right, for whatever county you at throughout the United States, and type in the Alternative Dispute Resolution, all right? And that information that I'm talking about is actually in your title insurance policy for the homeowner, all right? So you don't have to really go to a foreclosure. So if you received anything to foreclose, you can notify the attorney for that lender, all right, and the court that you want to go into an ADR conference as opposed to going into a foreclosure conference, all right? Because even when you go to a foreclosure conference, the difference between the ADR and the loan modification conference, right, is that they would deny you, all right? And so you back to square one again to be foreclosed on. But when you go to the ADR meeting, that's not a denial. Both parties would have to agree, all right? And basically how this works is that whatever debt that you fell behind in, that's the debt that's going to be in dispute, which means that it stops the lender from trying to accelerate the whole entire loan, all right? So if you got a $300,000 loan, as an example, for the mortgage or deed of trust, all right, instead of going into foreclosure, you can go into what you call as an ADR, which is Alternative Dispute Resolution, all right? And what that does is going to settle the case on the debt that's owed, not to accelerate the mortgage. Now, that acceleration clause that's in the mortgage is something that people who has a deed of trust or a mortgage doesn't know, that there's an acceleration clause that you agreed to when you signed it at the closing, all right? But what Vouch You Safe is the ADR conference, all right? That language is also in the title insurance policy, all right? They call it the AAA, which is the American Arbitration Association. That's basically what that ADR is, all right? And so people need to look into that. And if you didn't get your title insurance policy, you need to contact the lender, all right, and say, listen, I didn't get my title insurance policy, and read your policy, y'all, all right? It's in small print, which it shouldn't be. It should be no smaller than an 11, but, that's technically a violation to the contract to have a small print that looks like a 7 or 8 or possibly 9, all right? So they shouldn't be putting small prints in these policies or in your deed of trust or mortgage. So it's very important to be aware of this information, all right? So I trust that people is taking this information down who's watching this show, all right? So it gives me an opportunity to express information that you need to know, all right? This is what we do every Sunday between 7 and 9, every Sunday on Zoom, all right? Just to give out information to help people, all right? We know we're not attorneys. We're not giving legal advice. We don't give financial advice. We are a research study group. And what we do is we share the information among each other, all right? That's what we do. We share the information among each other, because 9 to 10, the problem is that people is unaware of the information, all right? So by me taking this time, all right, not having a guest today, which I would normally would have, right? I will take the time myself and just deliberate so much information that I have studied within 30 years. So I got so much information to people, usually when they come on my Zoom channel, all right, and we have the research study group, they have an opportunity to ask questions, all right? So what I can do is give you my email, and if you choose to want to get onto the Zoom call every Sunday between 9 and 7, just 2 hours, all right, just 2 hours, I can give you my email address near the end of this show, all right, my telephone number, and I will give you the instructions on how to contact me, all right, because you're going to have to contact me through email, give me your name and your telephone number. The same thing with my phone. You would have to give your name and your telephone number in a text, all right? If you don't do it that way, please be not offended for me not to respond, because I don't know who's calling. I don't know your name. I don't know your number. And the problem is I have so many spam calls and so much telemarketing calls that I may think that that's one of those calls. So to keep y'all from not being subject for me not to respond to those telemarketing calls or spam calls. Please identify yourself by name and number, and just say that you have seen me on this show, giving out so much information, which is Millennium News 24. All right. So I just want to be clear that everybody can contact me. And again, you can join the Zoom call, or you can call me freely, and we can talk whatever information you need, whatever it is. If you need assistance with a credit card to build up your credit, or clean up your credit, or get your credit restored back again, because I've done that in the past for someone. I restored their American Express card and got their account be restored back again, which is unheard of, because a lot of these credit companies talking about credit consolidation, but they don't talk about restoring your card back. All right. So that, again, we have a research study group. We study a lot of information that's out there. Information is not mine exclusively. This information is coming from federal statutes, it's coming from state statutes, it's coming from the Treasury regulations, it's coming from the IRS compliance. So we are in compliance to federal and state law and municipal law, the federal regulations, all right, which the IRS deals with, all right? So we want to stay in compliance, all right? Because once we're in compliance, you really technically cannot be denied, all right? So it's very important to be aware of this. Like I said, I'm giving so much information out to be able to help the people at large, all right? So again, like I said, at the end of the show, I'm going to give my telephone number, and I'm going to give you my email, so that way you can contact me, for Sunday, all right? You don't have to wait for Sunday to contact me. You can contact me at any given time, because this is what I do. We do research and study. So there's sometimes people need to contact people who does a lot of research in this area, who does, a lot of assistance to help people, you know what I'm saying? And of course, this is what we do, all right? All day long, this is what we do, because so many of us needs this help, all right? So I'm going to come back from a commercial break and continue to give you, for the next half an hour, some more information that you're going to find to be very helpful across this country. Thank you.
Welcome to Millennium News 24, your trusted source for accurate, unbiased news. We're here to bring you the stories that matter most from America and around the world, with integrity and a commitment to truth. In today's world, where misinformation can easily spread, having access to reliable news is more important than ever. At Millennium News 24, we aim to cut through the noise by delivering clear, fact-based reporting. Whether you're following major events or looking for in-depth analysis, we are here to serve you with transparency and respect for all communities regardless of color, wealth, or religion. This beautiful America was built by the resilience of its people, immigrants, entrepreneurs, doctors, and everyday individuals working together to create something great. It's this spirit that inspires us to provide you with news that's inclusive, honest, and relevant. We believe that informed citizens are the foundation of a strong society, and we strive to give you the knowledge you need to make a difference. From breaking news to insightful features, we bring you comprehensive coverage on politics, economics, health, culture, and much more. We believe that everyone deserves access to the truth, and we are proud to be a part of a global network that connects people through information. Stay informed by following us on your devices, including iOS, Android, Roku, Amazon, Apple TV, and Smart TVS. And for global access, we're also available on Horizon Satellite. Visit us at www.millenniumtv24.com or www.millenniumnews24.com to stay updated at Millennium News 24. Our mission is to promote unity, understanding, and progress in a rapidly changing world. Join us as we work to inspire positive action through the power of truth. Thank you for watching. Follow us, subscribe, and stay informed.
Yes, I am back, and we would truly stay informed, as with the commercial break have stated, to give people the truth so that way they can clad themselves and indemnify themselves, all right, in a society that is just so much debt going on, all right, because people just cannot maintain financial stability, all right. You don't know when you're going to be laid off. You don't know when you're going to be employed. You don't know when you're going to go disability. And so the question is, what other legal alternative what other financial alternative and legal alternative that I may use to defend myself and protect myself and keep myself stable. All right. I also want to share with y'all too about anytime you get letters from debt collectors. All right. The section that you need to go to, again, as I stated before the commercial break, is that we use federal statutes and state statutes, federal rules and regulations, all right, to stay in compliance. Because once you're in compliance, technically, you really cannot be denied, all right? I'm not saying that you're going to get your relief and remedy like that, because we do live in a very biased system where it comes to the courts, the lawyers, and so that's the reason why we do our own research, we do our own studies, because there's a lot of subterfuge going on inside, the courtrooms, all right? So when these creditors bring you there, all right, so what is the prerequisite that you should do before you being brought to court? I don't care if it's a mortgage, deed of trust issue, or it's a credit issue, period, for any of those financial institutions or debt collectors. Well, when it comes to the debt collectors, they have what they call is the Debt Collection Practice Act. All right, the Federal Debt Collection Practice Act, which is, again, that's 15 U.S.C. Section 1692. All right, you need to look at that. There's a section in there that you can draft up a letter, all right, to the debt collector, all right, and you can ask the debt collector certain questions. Like, for instance, let me give you an example. And I trust that you're taking this information down. If you put a debt collection letter together, all right, what you need to do is put down that you want to know concerning the escrow account, all right, because every account that's open have to have an escrow account, all right? That's one. You want the escrow account information. You want the escrow history of all the payments that you paid. That's two. You need, the escrow agent. Who's the agent presiding over the escrow account, all right? Then you want the escrow bond, all right? Because you may want to make a claim, because there may be some inaccurate issues that's going on, especially if the debt collector is not the original lender who have lended you the credit, all right, for the transaction of the loan, all right? So it's very important to know that information. The same thing when it comes to the mortgage and deed of trust, all right? You won't use the Debt Collection Practice Act format. The language is in there that you can look at and draw from to draft that up. But when it comes to the mortgage, it's RESPA, which is Real Estate Settlement Procedure Act. That's the one for the mortgages. And then you do what you call is a restoration request letter or notice, all right? And you could use the same exact language about the escrow agent, escrow account, the escrow bond, all right? You can ask for that same exact information as the content of both these documents that you send, certified term receipt, y'all, because you want to keep a track on who is responding to you or who's not responding to you. So that way, if you had no choice but to go to court because you're being compelled under threat, duress, and coercion, you can always raise your Debt Collection Practice Act letter that by federal law, they have to respond to that. They have to respond for that. And it's very important to read that section 15 U.S.C. section 1692. All right. You need to read that section. All right. And get yourself well acquainted with that, because that is your defense against the creditor. All right. Same thing with the mortgage and the deed of trust. All right. You need to look at RESPA requests. That's 12 USC. USC represents the United States Code. All right. So 12 USC, Title 12 USC, Section 2605. All right. Those for those who has deeds of trust and mortgages. You go to 12 USC, Section 2605. All right. And it shows you that they have to comply as a disclosure. All right. And there's penalties. There's penalties on the Debt Collection Practice Act side. When you go read into that section, there's penalties against that particular lender for not complying, because it is federal law, and there's penalties under the RESPA. All right. And when you read under section 2605, they show you about the civil penalties. All right. So both federal statutes, one is for the creditors, and the other one is for the mortgages and deeds of trust. All right. And there are penalties. So when you go in there in those statutes and you read, you'll see the civil penalties for not compliance. So that's why when you draft up your letter, all right, or your notice or your demand, all right, you send a certified return receipt. All right. It's very important that you show a track record. All right. So that way, when you have to go to court being compelled against your will, you can say that they had violated a federal statute. They didn't comply outside of the court, because technically outside of the court, they must comply. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, you can file what you call a RESPA complaint, or you can file a debt collection practice complaint. All right. And there's agencies that you can file the complaints with, and you just give them exactly what you said with the certified return receipt showing that the creditor did receive it and he's not complying to federal law. All right. So again, the statute for mortgages and deed of trust is 12 USC, which stands for United States Code, section 2605. Read that thoroughly. Get a pad and a pen and write down and take some notes, so that way you know how to draft up your letter. The same thing with the Federal Debt Collection Practice Act, which is 15 USC section 1692. Get your pad, your pencil, and write down all the necessary information that you want to construct into your letter of notice. All right. In 1910, you really don't even have to really construct. You can just, as they say, copy and paste from whatever that statute says and put that into your letter. All right. And then of course, you would give a description of what your issues are in both letters, as far as the RESPA complaint letter and the Fair Debt Collection Practice Act complaint letter. All right. To the lender, that they must comply to federal law. Very important that I give that information out to be able to help the people. All right. So that's just one set of recourse that you can have, all right, to deal with the creditors, you know, because a lot of people just don't know how to deal with it. And then the most subterfuge issue is when you hire an attorney. You know, in our research study group, we have so many people come on, and it's interesting that across this country, the attorneys are doing the same exact thing. You know, they do not help you. It's called ineffective of counsel. Now they got it on the civil side. At one time, it was just on the criminal side. So I'm glad that the legislators opened up the civil side of effective of counsel. All right. And how you deal with that situation, I'm going to show you what you do. Anybody out there across this country have hired an attorney, I don't care what it is, for a mortgage, a credit card, deed of trust, debt collection, you know, bankruptcy, whatever you hired as an attorney. If the attorney did not help you at all for the compensation that you have hired him to do, all right, he's in breach of his fiduciary duty to that contract. All right. Technically, you're supposed to get what you call is a contract from the attorney. All right. You pay the contract fee, and he's supposed to give you the contract. All right. Now, where all this information is at is the Code of Professional Responsibilities for Attorneys. When you go into that section of that code, you can see exactly what the attorney is supposed to give you. All right. A retainers contract, and he wants to retain his fee. But if he doesn't do exactly according to that contract, now you're the one is supposed to describe what you want the attorney to do on the contract. And now there got to be something that's fair and reasonable. We don't want to talk about something that's outrageous. You want to stay within the borders of the contract. So you want to draw things out to say exactly what it is that you want the attorney to prosecute your claim. All right. You keep it brief, short, to the point. And once you pay that consultation fee to solidify the retainer's contract, which is a retainer's fee, all right, then you also want the attorney to send you what you call is billing hours, because you want to see exactly what you're paying for through billing hours. So it's very important to be aware of this information, all right? Because again, the masses of people is unaware of this information I'm giving out today, all right? And so this is the love that I'm sharing, because it's just terrible that people are suffering, economically, what I'm saying, in finances and in legalities, that they're suffering and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to get help from. They don't know where to seek, and then they're trusting in these attorneys who's just taking their monies and just leaving them out there to dry. All right. And then you have no recourse. And then now all of a sudden you have to suffer more than what you already have suffered for. All right. So again, anybody who have an attorney, I don't care if it's a criminal attorney that represented your case, or attorney that represents your case on the civil side. So it doesn't matter to me if it's a civil side or criminal side. If all those who had an attorney, that the attorney was hired to do a work for you, and you paid the fee to that attorney with a retainer's contract, all right? If he breaches his contract, you can go to the Lawyers Guild. Every state has a Lawyers Guild. It goes back to 1939, all right? This is the better alternative to the Bar Association, because the Bar Association really doesn't do anything to these attorneys when they violate people's civil rights, all right? Especially when they have a fiduciary duty that they're breaching, all right? The Bar Association does not address it like they're supposed to. So the Lawyers Guild in 1939 is a better system, because they have what you call is a client's fund. So when the attorney violate the client's rights, be it civil or criminal, that fund can fund you for your damages. So I think it's very important that we know about that information. But I'm going to come back after commercial break and give you some more information for the next 15 minutes. All right, so we breaking for commercial break. Thank you.
Hello viewers, you are watching Millennium News 24. America and global villages Saint America independence built by immigrants, manufacturers, roads, highways, educations, healthcare, IT, scientists, space business development to all thousands of multimedia and all major social media platforms and news network in America. Millennium News 24, one of truthfully news networks in America and global news organizations. Please watch, follow and subscribe. We are in iOS and Android devices, Roku, Amazon, Apple devices, all smart TV, globally Horizon satellite, social media Millennium News 24, Millennium TV 24. Website www.millenniumnews24.com and www.millenniumtv24.com. Thank you.
Yes, I'm back. And thank you for listening in on this 45-minute information that I was just laying out for the public at large to get information on what they can do. Across the county, they have in these courts, it could be a district court, court of common pleas, it could be a Supreme Court, Superior Court. They got various courts out there. The clerk office is the place that I'm referring to at these courthouses across the country. They have what they call as the Office of Representation, or the Pro Se Office. Some places call it the Pro Se Office or the Office of Representation. Those are the offices that has the forms that you may need depending on what your situation may be. Like if you need a motion that you need and you may not know how to put a motion together, they got forms in those offices. All right, across the country in these different courthouses at the clerk office. You can just ask for whatever the libraries in those courthouses also will be a place where you can go and get those forms, because the librarian can also assist you on what forms that you need. You can get the affidavit of service forms, all right, if you're serving them. They got the summons, they got the complaint forms there, all right. They got the order to show cause, they got the petition and the verified petition. So I'm just bringing this information out to inform the people that they don't have to be stuck. We know that the school system didn't give us legal education and financial education while we were in junior high school, what they call middle school and high school. All right. Those are the times that we should have learned how to become a civilian, because when you get the Black's Law Dictionary, which is one need in every household, go to thriftbooks.com. Thriftbooks.com is where you can get these books for pennies on a dollar. You don't have to go to the regular bookstore and pay $80, $90 or more for these books. You can go to thriftbooks.com and you can get these books penny on the dollar and try to get the Black's Law Dictionary, all right? Because when you start looking up the legal terms, it's going to help you put your pleadings together. You're going to know exactly the legalese of the language in your motion, all right? When you go into the courthouse or any of these hearings for the administration, when you study the language, all right, and build up your vocabulary, you'll know what the judge is saying. You'll know what the lawyers are saying, all right? So I'm saying these things to empower the people to have legal, right, knowledge and have financial knowledge, because we don't have financial literacy and we don't have legal literacy. And because we are at a threat to arrest coercion, they can be using this against us as a weapon of warfare because of our alleged ignorance. All right. So get the Black's Law Dictionary at thriftbooks.com. All right. You're going to thank me for it, because you're going to say, wow, very, very affordable. And when you look up the word civilian, all right, because the majority of us would say, oh, I'm a civilian because I'm not in the military. All right. But do we know what the definition of in law, what the word civilian means? The word civilian means one who's learned and skilled in law. All right, y'all. So get your Black's Law Dictionary. All right. Go to the courthouses, clerk's offices, libraries in these courthouses, and get these forms that you need. All right. You need to get those, like I said, verified petition and petition, the summons and complaint. All right. You can get the affidavit of service. All right. So they got various different forms there, depending on what your circumstances are. All right. They got motion to vacate a judgment. They got the orders to show cause. All right. And then you need to know the statutes to see that you are in compliance when you do fill out these legal forms. All right. You got to know the rules of the court. It seems like it's a lot, but I'm telling you, you spend, at least an hour a day throughout the week. All right. Just go to the law library in those courthouses, or go to the clerk's office, and the pro se office, or the office of representative, self-representative. They would instruct you. They would give you some insight. All right. So I think it's very important that I share this knowledge to people. All right. So you can empower yourself, because I just don't like to see people being taken advantage of a system that we are ignorant to the laws, that we are ignorant to finance. All right. And then we getting hit very hard. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's very important for me to share that information. All right. Again, there's case laws. Just go to Google. They got case text. All right. They got Scrib. All right. Scrib. These are different sites that you can join in. All right. And you can look up case laws. All right. And just type in the issues, whatever the issues are that you may have, how to defend yourself from a foreclosure. All right. You type that in and look up the case laws and see what those case laws are. See, because you can see that judges have made certain decisions. All right. In that arena when it comes to deeds of trust or mortgages. All right. You can look up case laws on credit card issues, on how that was being handled. What I'm saying is, when you look up these case laws, you're looking up these decisions that's being made by these judges. All right. So it gives you an idea, all right, what you're looking for or what you're not looking for. All right. Or what you should avoid, I should say. All right. So you won't make the same mistake. All right. So I'm giving you some very excellent information because when you go to a law firm, they want $200 an hour. And they're not going to even give you this information that I've given you right now. They would not give you this kind of information. They would just sit there and have a casual discussion about your case, and that's it. That's all they're going to do. All right. And they're going to make you think that they're going to do something for you once you start giving them that retainers contract. And that's another issue. You make sure you get a retainers contract because there's so many people out there who hired attorneys and never got the retainers contract, but you paid the retainers fee. So it's very important that I emphasize that fact that you get that retainers contract, because once you get that retainers contract, he is compelled to go through that contract. If not, you can sue the lawyer for the breach of contract. All right. You can sue him for damages. All right. You can look up damages, look up case law on damages. All right. You know, whatever your situation is, you can go to these case law sites and put that in and get the reading. You'll be surprised what you will find. You will probably find something in there that is similar to your case that you can use as an argument, you know, and it's res judicata, you know, which means that it was already ruled upon. You know what I'm saying? So if you're similarly situated or if you have a commonality with that case, all right, then that can be a great service and benefit to you. All right. So I'm just giving some whereabouts and how to be able to go about, you know, because being in this system is like a maze. You know, when you don't have financial knowledge, you don't have legal knowledge, you'll be like in a maze. All right. And then we think the first thing we need to do is, you know what, let me go get a lawyer. And then the lawyer makes the maze even worse. All right. So I think it's very important that that I share that knowledge and information with y'all. All right. So again, my website, my email is F like in Frank, U like in up, R like in red, D like in David, E like in Eric, M like in mom, U like in up, I like in ink, R like in red at yahoo.com. Again, it's FURDEMUIR at yahoo.com. Please, what I need for you to do is email me in the subject box, whatever's convenient, your name and your number, and give me the topic that you want me to assist you on based upon our research study group. Because I'm not doing this alone. We have a beautiful staff and we all work together. This is our third year on Zoom, giving out excellent information, and people is just coming in like a floodgate because they need help. Telephone number is 347-626-1357. That's 347-626-1357. Please text me your name and number and the subject matter that you want to be addressed. All right. You can reach me at those two contacts that I just gave out as we come to a close. And I appreciate you being on to just listen to this information that is going to empower the people all across this nation, especially when we're in a serious turmoil, all right, with this new administration that's going on right now. We don't know what's going to happen, all right, but you want to empower yourself in law and in equity, all right, because Article 3 of the United States Constitution says judicial authority shall extend in all cases in law and in equity, and that's what we study, law and equity. All right. And this is from the federal Constitution. All right. So the federal Constitution is giving you some insight. What should we be studying? Law and inequity. All right. So thriftbooks.com is where you can go and get law books for nothing and books on finance for nothing. Another book you can get, which is very excellent, is called Accounting for Dummies, 9 books in 1. Excellent book. Excellence. Anybody who's having issues with these creditors from these companies, you need to get the Accounting for Dummies. It have to say 9 books in 1 because the information is awesome. This is what we learn, all right, and study and research for each other and our staff. And we are very successful, very, very successful with the information that we research and study. All right. So again, I'll see you soon next week. Thank you for coming on to the show. My name is Kameti Ube. All right. For those who might have came on late. So that way, if you contact me, you know who you're speaking to. All right. Thank you for coming on. and I'll see you next Friday. Thank you.